day. Obama's enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. Our guest, he's one of the co-authors, along with John Fund, is Hans von Spakovsky. He's a former Justice Department official. He is the manager, Election Reform Initiative at Heritage Action, and a senior fellow, legal fellow at Heritage Foundation. And Hans, great reviews, even speaking to the fact that, yes, you all are conservative, but you're going after the injustice at the Justice Department under Eric Holder. Here is what President Obama said before the election of 2008. He was then Senator Obama. Here were his words. Roll it.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
He used Eric Holder and his role as Attorney General to transform America.
Yes, he has, because we have all seen that President Obama believes that he and his administration are above the law, that they basically can do whatever they think is best, and that's the power and authority they're using to try to transform America. And every step he's taken, every time he has ignored the law, failed to defend the law, bent, broken, or changed a law passed by Congress, who is it that is at his side, telling him he's doing the right thing, giving him legal advice, saying, yes, you can do that? It's Eric Holder.
Eric Holder used to be a man respected in the Justice Department across the aisle in the sense of the viewpoints, conservative, liberal, otherwise, and he fought corruption. What changed?
Well, he got more and more political as the years went by. He became personally, politically ambitious. Also, a lawyer that we talked to who worked with him when he first got to the Justice Department. This is straight out of law school, very young man. I'd say he was a very good lawyer, but he said, when he got married, he seemed to start changing then. And, his wife has been interviewed on many occasions. She's got a very bitter attitude, that same bitter attitude we've seen with Eric Holder about the black experience in America, and that seems to have infected Eric Holder as well.
How we're familiar with the IRS and the scandal there, but you, in this book, you go and speak to the use of the EPA regulations and law. There are different levels to areas of corruption, or different tools, if you will. Are there some things we aren't aware of how the Justice Department is enforcing certain regulations that are penalizing those unjustly?
Oh, yeah. Look, we read in the media when they cover it some of the most obvious scandals, things like the IRS. But there's all this other stuff that goes on underneath the radar in all the different areas the Justice Department regulates. I mean, everything from the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which the department has used to go after companies who are basically doing the same things the U.S. government does, to what we call collusive litigation with their environmental allies to get regulations and things in place that they normally probably wouldn't be able to do under the law.
So when like Gibson guitar comes to mind, or something along those lines, but what you're saying is when the Justice Department enters the enforcement, that's a pretty big hammer.
Yeah, it's a huge hammer because, look, so the Justice Department is the largest law firm in the United States. They have lots and lots of lawyers. They have lots of money, and it is extremely difficult for anyone to stand up to them. Certainly it's difficult for individuals. Even states have a tough time standing up to the Justice Department because they're just overwhelmed by the resources on the other side. And that, unfortunately, gives the Justice Department the ability to do just about what they want unless and until a judge actually calls them back or questions what they're doing. And frankly, a lot of judges don't do that. They kind of rubber stamp the Justice Department.
You speak to prosecutorial abuse and election integrity. With the amount, I mean, when I think of scandals, I think of James Rosen, I think of the Associated Press, I think of Cheryl Atkinson, actually, Fast and Furious, IRS. But you also have been a leader of exposing the truth about voter ID laws and election integrity with your first book with John Fund, Who's Counting? What don't we know about what's maybe we're not aware of that your book touches on regarding election integrity and prosecutorial abuse?
Well, even I was surprised. Look, I monitor what the Justice Department does. And even I was surprised once we got into researching this book, how many times over the past few years cases brought by the Justice Department have been thrown out by judges claiming that they were engaged in prosecutorial abuse. And it's in everything from voting cases to all kinds of other areas that the department prosecutes. And people, again, they have to understand the Justice Department is involved in almost every area you can possibly imagine where government policy is an issue.
So when we're looking at this, a couple things come to mind. One, the Marc Rich pardon. Oftentimes, not a lot of people have covered that. Your book goes into that. Tell us about what took place with the Marc Rich pardon that we should be aware of. And it also speaks to the integrity of one Eric Holder.
The Marc Rich pardon was a pardon given by Bill Clinton, and most people may forget that while Eric Holder's the head of the Justice Department in this administration, he was the number 2 guy in the Clinton administration, and he is the one who arranged for and got approval from the president of a pardon for Marc Rich. Marc Rich at the time was a fugitive, a financier who had fled the United States for Switzerland. All the prosecutors in the case did not want a pardon, and in fact, in American history, while we have always had instances where the president has pardoned people once they were convicted and in jail, never had anyone been pardoned who was a fugitive, an international fugitive. And this happened after Mrs. Rich gave literally millions of dollars to the Clinton administration, and the lawyer for him was a lawyer from the Clinton administration who'd gone into private practice and who was a key confidant of Al Gore, who, as you know, was running for president. And Eric Holder clearly wanted to be the Attorney General in the Al Gore administration.
So what we get is historical context to the emergence of Eric Holder, how he became what he is, and how he's being used as a heat shield by the administration. You have a quote from a DOJ veteran, quote, about Eric Holder, the worst person to hold the position of Attorney General since disgraced John Mitchell, who went to jail as a result of the Watergate scandal. We've heard people referencing Nixon more and more, including Jonathan Turley, about the Nixon corruption, or maybe it was Fournier, but I think maybe both, quite frankly. Historically speaking, you provide some context to this. Hans, this is not business as usual, right?
No, it's not. And, for those who say, oh, this is just a partisan attack, no. In fact, in the book, we cite prior attorney generals of both parties, Republican, Democrat, who did very ethical, professional jobs when they were attorney general. Eric Holder has not matched that. In fact, it's very clear that he sees his role as protecting the president first, as opposed to being the attorney general who has to pursue the interests of justice, even when that conflicts with the political goals of the president.
The book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. We speak to Hans almost every week, and sometimes twice a week. And this book goes into greater detail about some things that we were aware of but really didn't know the full story, Fast and Furious. But it also highlights some things we didn't know that are very important for the American people to know. Hans, this is a book that we must read, and you're sitting there going, of course, Crane, that's why I wrote it. I don't have a lot of time. I focused on this. Obama's Enforcer, getting rave reviews, by the way. Thank you for taking the time. We'll speak more on the book and more, but great work. Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, Hans von Spakovsky, John Fund, the authors. Bravo. Thanks for taking the time tonight, Hans.
Thank you, Crane.